Hi guys, my name is Trevor Swenson, and I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel called Through the Darkness, which focuses on trauma and stressor disorder and PTSD, and discussing it and discussing my journey and putting myself out there in hopes of helping other people that have either unresolved trauma, are in the middle of trauma, or have been fighting PTSD and trauma disorder for a long time. Trauma and stressor disorder and PTSD carries with it a stigma. One of the things that I have found is that the reaction to it is it only happens in combat scenarios, it only happens in our first responders, it only happens in extremely traumatic scenarios, which couldn't be further from the truth. Trauma is specific to you. Your trauma is your trauma. My trauma is my trauma. How I develop trauma and stressor disorder is most likely a completely different path that you may be struggling with trauma in your life. This channel's purpose is to shine a bright light and give encouragement and give hope and to help people and to do something fulfilling, even though I'm in the midst of PTSD myself. I've had PTSD for over 10 years and have been in treatment aggressively for quite a few years for it as well, and it is a very quiet, invisible hell. Unlike a severe bodily injury, you can't see PTSD. In fact, there are very, very high functioning people, and I would consider myself one of them as well, that are completely torn up on the inside because of trauma, continued exposure to trauma, a traumatic event, a traumatic relationship. Whatever your trauma's face looks like, it is making your life very, very difficult and very, very challenging to live. And I want to talk openly about it, and I want to tell my story, and I want to talk about the things that I've struggled with. I want to talk about the things that have worked well for me. I want to talk about how it's affected the people around me. I want to talk about how my life has changed because of it. I want to talk about what I've lost because of it. I want to talk about things I've gained and things I've learned through it. There is so much unresolved trauma out there. There is undiagnosed trauma and stressor disorder that is being masked by chemical abuse and anxiety and depression and all of the ugly things that come with PTSD. And one of my purposes in life, I feel very strongly about, is turning around and putting a hand out for those people that may be struggling with trauma and stressor disorder of any kind. One of the misnomers out there, and it surely was applicable to me when I was diagnosed with PTSD, is I thought that it was completely insulated within the military, first responder, and very violent acts community, whether it be violent abuse or violent sexual abuse. And I have found through my treatment and through me studying what is wrong with me and why I'm screwed up, that couldn't be further from the truth. And I want people to have the courage to take that first step, to start asking for help and finding good help and starting that road to recovery. That is very, very important to me and my motivation for putting myself out there. It's not easy to talk about. I will tell you that as I've been doing episodes for this, that it is very painful to go through the things that have really, really consumed me and changed my life and changed how I have had to live life because of it. And on the same hand, it's just as important to talk about the things that have changed for the better as well. And we will talk about all of those things. As far as the upcoming topics that I want to talk about symptoms. I want to talk about questions like, what does it feel like to have PTSD? I just want to open up dialogue to have people have a place where they can go and they can either start a conversation with confidence, or they can have the courage to take that first step, or to talk to people that are close to them that love them very much. I just want to shine a bright light on trauma and stressor disorder, because I have a feeling that there are a lot of people that are walking through life right now that had events that really impacted them for the worse, that is manifesting itself in all sorts of ugly things like depression and chemical abuse and self-harm and sleep disorders and hypervigilance, and is just sucking the life out of you. And you feel like you are walking around like an empty shell, like I have for so many years. And I don't want that. I want it to stop for everybody, and I want everybody to get help, and I want everybody to have the courage and hear the encouragement to get help, to live that life that you were supposed to live. Some of the topics that we're going to be discussing in the upcoming episodes are going to be symptoms that I struggle with, and my diagnosis, what that looked like, my first steps after I was diagnosed with PTSD, the things that happened leading up to my diagnosis. We are going to talk about other people in your life that may be affected by post-traumatic stress disorder because you have it or they have it and you want to get them help. I want to talk about the people that you are very, very close to, that your disorder, which is very, very treatable and very, very conquerable, I want to be able to talk about it openly in hopes that you, in turn, do the same thing for yourself and get help and walk out that purpose that has always been there for you to walk out as an individual. That is my motivation through this. PTSD is a very, very painful thing to walk through. I will tell you that it has been a very, very dark period in my life. And at the same time, I have been blessed with having a lot of things shown to me and my eyes opened about a lot of things because of trauma and stressor disorder. It changes you as a person, but my challenge to you through this series and the number of videos that I'm going to be putting out, that it changes you for the better, that it opens your eyes, that it softens your heart, that it changes how you treat people and talk to people and interact with people, in hopes that the generations that come after you and the people that are around you end up even better in spite of your trauma and stressor disorder. And it starts with talking about it, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my journey. I'm going to talk about very painful things to me, and one of the things that has been a phrase or a mantra that has kept pounding through my head and the head of my wife has been, for the one. I really, really believe that whether this series is viewed by one person or a million people, it is well worth putting myself out there and having open discussion about trauma and stressor disorder and PTSD. If one person takes that step, if one person allows it to change them for the better, if one person heals, if one person finds purpose, if one person figures out that awesome life journey and purpose in spite of PTSD, it will have been all worth it to have put myself out there. So I asked this question. It's painful. It's unbelievably painful, and we're going to talk about that in hopes of not only informing people, but also to validate you. One of the things that is in short supply with people with PTSD and trauma and stressor disorder, at no fault of their own, Not only is the trauma of no fault of their own, I want you to know that, and not only is the trauma your trauma, nobody can define your trauma, which I'll talk about, there's lack of validation. Validation is so powerful, and one of the ways that you grow validation is being open with the people that are closest to you and being open with healthcare providers. And I'm going to challenge you to do both throughout the course of these episodes. We're going to talk about some off-the-wall topics. We're going to talk about some people skills topics. We're going to talk about some painful topics for me to talk about, but we're going to get it out there and we're going to start a discussion. And I really would love it if someday somebody was able to say, you need to listen to this guy because this is what I'm walking through, and he's able to articulate it in a way that made it easier for me to talk about and made it easier for me to understand and to attack on a personal level. Inside of each one of us, myself included and yourself included, is this absolutely perfect gem of a soul. Your soul is your purpose, and your purpose with trauma and stressor disorder is being covered up with layers of depression and anxiety and unresolved trauma, nightmares, hypervigilance, alcohol and chemical dependency issues, fear, anxiety, all of those things. Hopefully one by one you're able to peel back the layers to get to that beautiful, perfect soul that you were created to be. Inside each one of us is a soul that is just as valuable, that is just as important, that has a very specific purpose to walk out in this lifetime. And my goal and my prayer is that through this series you are able to start to rediscover exactly who you were created to be and how wonderfully perfect you are when all of those layers are peeled back and addressed. I want you to remember this perfect gem and keep this in the back of your mind through this entire series, because this is who your creator envisions that you are. And it's awesome to think about that every day I'm starting to see a little bit more of exactly who I was created to be and the purpose that I have in life in spite of trauma and stressor disorder. So I really want you to know tonight, before I sign off, that you are not alone, that you are very, very loved, that you do have purpose in spite of what you're up against or somebody that you love dearly is up against. This is something that can be overcome, but it's going to take work, and it's going to be hard work, and there are going to be days that are very difficult ahead. But I will tell you the end result, I believe in all of my heart, will be a rewarding life that changes not only how you look at yourself, but how you look at other people as well. And that will have been worth it for me to have talked about my story with trauma and stressor disorder and my journey with PTSD. It's been a long 10 years of battling this, and I feel like it's time in my recovery to start opening up, start putting my hand out to help other people get their healing and get the answers and get the purpose back in their life. And I can't wait for you to join me in this series as we talk about trauma and stressor disorder, everything that it brings with us, everything that it affects in our lives, and hopefully ways that you can find that are healthy, that will help you on the path of healing. Again, this is Trevor Swenson for PTSD Through the Darkness. I really hope that you subscribe. I hope you hit the notification button. I hope that you forward this to somebody that you know might be struggling with unresolved trauma or undiagnosed trauma and stressor disorder or undiagnosed PTSD. I'm telling you, it's out there. It's out there, and there's a lot more of it in our society than we know. And it's about time that we shine a bright light on it and we get people to not only be compassionate and empathetic and validating, but we also get people on the same boat as far as overwhelming help and healing for people that have experienced trauma at no fault of their own. Thanks for being with me. I can't wait to have you see the upcoming videos. I'm going to be working long and hard on a lot of topics. It's going to take me through the seasons of the year, and I'm going to do them with all of my heart and all of the commitment that I have in making sure that you know that you are not alone, you are loved, and you can overcome this. See you next time.